Hello. We are discussing police misconduct, and one of the cases that I decided to discuss was the Gabby Petito case. Um, Basically, long story short, if you aren't familiar, she was emotionally and physically abused by her partner, Brian, and they were, or she was specifically, a van life vlogger, and they had went to like different places, I guess, like live on van life. And he had came back and she didn't, and her family hadn't heard from her, and allegedly he murdered her. He had ended up taking his own life before anybody could really get any answers. Um, but there was a pattern of abuse with him and things like that. Um, the police misconduct part is when there was a tip made by some pedestrians that were just walking around, and they had witnessed Brian hitting her, I believe, and just a bunch of screaming and yelling, and Gabby had seemed to be just in distress and things like that. So they decided to reach out to law enforcement to have somebody basically go figure out what's going on. Um, and I believe it was in Utah where they had gotten stopped. And basically, there was male police officers, which I think in this case it kind of means something. Had stopped the van and basically kind of asked like what's going on. Brian was the one driving the van, and he was like swerving back and forth and things like that. So he was asked why he was driving like that. Gabby was crying and just like visibly upset and in distress as soon as the police officers had um, uh, gone up to the car or the van, and they had basically told both of them to get out of the car. They took Gabby to the back of the police car, which I think is interesting. Like, I guess, like, separate them, but I don't know. But they had basically talked to both of them, and Brian was basically talking about how Gabby was stressing him out because she has OCD and really bad anxiety, and how she was just getting in her moods. And um, from Gabby's point of view, she had kind of said the same thing, just basically that she was like trying to get him to calm down, and it was just like making it worse. And she has anxiety and OCD, she had mentioned, and how Brian was telling her to calm down, but she she had said that she was a pretty calm person. Um, and Gabby compared to Brian had some like scratches on his face that you could see, and Gabby was visibly upset, and the police officers, while talking to Brian, it kind of just like seemed like buddy talk, like, oh yeah, she's crazy, huh? Like, the police officer even um, was like, yeah, my wife gets like that too. She just needs a good shower and then she's fine. Basically, not really trying to get the whole story, in my opinion. And they had basically said, we're gonna separate you guys for the night, um, because Gabby wasn't really saying anything that, you know, could really support her, I guess. Everybody was kind of blaming it on her anxiety and OCD, and she she was visibly upset, which, and he wasn't, which I think from a person, from a human standpoint, I would think that they would make a correlation of like, so maybe there's something else going on, but they didn't. And they had actually had Brian go to I believe it was like a domestic abuse, like center place where you can sleep, get showers, food, just a shelter basically. And they had Gabby sleep in the car, in the van. Um, and they told her a couple places where she could take a shower and wash her clothes and whatnot. Um, and I believe this to be police misconduct just because she ended up dead, unfortunately, and there were signs of abuse and things like that. And when Brian was taken, when Brian and got home, he had the van. He didn't talk to anybody. Parents were basically covering up for him, and things like that. Um, and yeah, it was just an all around bad situation. There was no justice for Gabby, unfortunately. Um, well, it depends on how you define justice in this situation. But yeah, it was a very sad situation.